Social, emotional learning, it's the new wave, where culturally responsive meets innovation.
Hey, Resilient ones. My name is Kristen Hopkins, founder of the Dangers of the Mind Education Fund and creator of Black SEL. I'm a social and emotional expert, curriculum developer, and social entrepreneur who believes in the holistic development of Black youth and adults through culturally responsive and affirming resources. Welcome to the Black SEL podcast, formerly known as Dangers of the Mind.
A reminder of a couple of our house announcements, which will be our Black SEL Summit coming up in September. We are also looking for, if you want to submit your application to participate as a vendor or to participate as a speaker, those two things are still available.
How do we get more Black men to enter into teaching? And as well as the ones that enter into teaching, research also shows for that demographic that they get pigeonholed into being deans and only dealing with behavior within schools. And so how do we create this pipeline for our Black males to become leaders within the educational system and see the trajectory of, like, yes, you start as a teacher. With everything, there's a starting point. There's teacher, but then you can become assistant principal, then you can become principal, then you can become assistant superintendent, then you can become superintendent, and think about that trajectory and how we need to do that to increase the amount of Black male teachers. So then, and as they learn about social emotional learning and think about how they incorporate that into their pedagogy, into their practices, that leads to creating the next generation of Black boys who will also be learning those social emotional skills that they would need in order to be successful, as well as to carry on the legacy of those that preceded them, to ensure our communities are thriving with Black men who have strong social emotional skills.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it really is telling that representation truly does matter. And when you see it in those settings, or you don't see it in those settings, you don't see a reflection of yourself, it makes it that much more unattainable, because you don't realize what the options are out there for you. So we know that, unfortunately, Black boys in schools are our most vulnerable demographic in terms of both behavior issues as well as academics. How do you see the competencies of SEL addressing those issues?
Absolutely. So when I think, one thing I like to dig deeper to is thinking about competencies and then indicators to those competencies. So what I find is we definitely, if you go around, even just in our group right now, like if we were to just say, what is self-awareness? What is self-management? First of all, these all are competencies that play a role in the development of our Black boys, and are essential for them to have in order to thrive in school, to thrive in their community, and to thrive at home. But I like to dig deeper because it can be so big picture, right? Like, again, people have multiple definitions of self-awareness. If you go across what Jamaican, Haitian, Nigerian, African, you start digging in, people are gonna start saying a lot of things that self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and social management are, and we should definitely honor those as we think about communities, and all communities and the people in those communities as strengths. But I like to dig into indicators. So, like, for example, if we think about self-awareness, what would it be an indicator that we know a student is displaying self-awareness? It would be demonstrating awareness of their needs and emotions, maybe a sense of personal responsibility, right? Every Black boy needs to have a sense of personal responsibility. That is him displaying self-awareness. If you go to self-management, we need Black boys to have the ability to manage their emotions, their needs and emotions. We need Black boys to demonstrate increasing levels of independence and the ability to set and achieve goals. But that would be that young man displaying self-management. We go to social awareness. We need Black boys to be able to demonstrate awareness of other people's roles, their emotions and perspectives. We need them to read and respond to social cues. That would be them developing or displaying the competency of social awareness. And so I think about why we want to dig there, because that right there resonates with people. Like, nobody says, I don't want my son to have those skills, right? And so when we really dig into the competencies, but really set indicators to those, or even when you look at Stephanie Jones's research, and she identified over 700 different social emotional skills, right? So we're talking about empathy, we're talking about compassion, and what some of these are, right? Why it's so important is this allows for comprehensive man to be developed. This allows for healthy masculinity to be developed, because those are what Black boys need in order to thrive in the world. I think about myself, and I lead a team of 27 people, but 25 of the people on my team are women, right? And so we can hypothesize what it could be like if I didn't have strong social emotional skills to be able to lead that group, especially having awareness of their needs and emotions, recognizing what they need, and to be supportive and able to do what they need to do their jobs, and feel comfortable coming to work. So the competencies are essential, but really also digging into the indicators to reflect the behaviors that we're looking for young men to develop that are essential for them to thrive at school, at home, and in their community.
That is the legacy of traditional and big media companies. And we've seen the narratives that they have put out about Black people and how those narratives fuel our oppression.
Yeah.
You know, being able to, as a part of your media diet, have media that's coming from Black people, and in particular Black people that want better for us.
You just said a part of your media diet.
Yeah.
I have never ever heard of those words together.
Yeah.
Like, expand on media diet. Like, just
so when we're talking about media diet, we're thinking about the different media that you consume, because all of us are consuming different types of media every day.
Yeah.
And so if you think about what's on your media plate, where is your news and information coming from?
And I think as Black people too, like, that are not in the media space, we don't look at media that seriously.
Yeah.
We're just clicking and turning the channel, or we're scrolling, watching what we watch, and just start just gossiping off of what we hear. We don't even know if it's a real credible source.
And if you thought about your media diet, then you would think about, what am I eating? What am I consuming? Where is it coming from? How is it fueling my health? Or how is it fueling my degradation?
That's so good. So I feel like I want to dig deeper into this about us as Black people. How do we hold ourselves accountable, and how can Black people be more involved in just media in general? We have a social or a responsibility to ourselves to have a media diet. I believe that's crucial. And I also believe that protects us in many aspects from trauma. Like, if there's certain media outlets that you're only going to get gossip. And is it really feeding your soul, right? Then you have other media outlets where you're going to get knowledge and insight, and you're going to learn.
Affirmation.
It looks like you. It feels like you. And we believe in cultural affirmation around here, right? And then even the cultural relevant piece, like, it's relevant to my life. It speaks to my soul.
Narrative is so core to our ability to get free, like our stories. We're literally talking about our stories.
Storytelling.
So when we tell our stories, it can literally be a reality check if we think about it like on an individual and interdependent level. Like, if I just keep all my stories in my head or keep them to myself, I'm moving through the world with just my narrative and just my story. But when I share it with somebody else, then it helps me understand that, like, there's a whole different perspective out there that can help me make meaning of the world around me. And so what does it look like to do that on a systems level?
Black SEL.
Blackity black, blackity black.
Hey! She got it all. Listen. A lot of people know you as Sharonda Arnold-Ocean, the brand.
Yeah.
Right? And so tell us a little bit about that brand first. What do you do on your Fridays?
Yeah. The brand is purpose to help us as women see ourselves properly, whole, perfect, and complete. And what I do every Friday is I drop a Friday nugget. And that nugget is just a dose of inspiration, a reminder to let you know, sis, you are it. She is you, and you are her.
And you are her.
And so that's what that's about. And you gotta love your damn self. It's more so of if I can say, it's my alter ego.
Yes. Come on, Beyonce with the alter ego.
It's letters to myself, my younger self, my older self, and my future self, right? And so on You Better Love Your Damn Self, you're going to see poetry. You're just going to see real life situations that we go through on a day-to-day basis, in the past, that you may go through in the future.
It's like scenarios. Everyday scenario. You always can resonate with it though.
Right.
You know, you always are that sis that you're talking about.
Yeah, and that's what I tell people. Anything that I post, I'm talking to myself first. Like, and I think that's why it comes across. It's so authentic because it's heartfelt, because it's really coming from me, whether I'm in this situation right now, whether I've experienced it in the past, or whether someone has shared their story with me and I'm able to birth something, some inspiration out of that.
I love that, you know, and I feel like people need you, and I appreciate you from the social emotional aspect and the industry, that because this is all we do all day, is like pull out these like pieces of people and say, this is what you need to do, but it has to be intentional. And so with the Black community, majority of your audience are Black women, I believe, that follow you, right? And you are preaching to the Black women. So I appreciate you on behalf of Black SEL, because you are already doing SEL. You are instilling confidence in these women. You are instilling management, like discipline, like organizational skills. This is all self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision making.
Girl, tell me what I'm doing.
I'm telling you, and you do it every day. Every Friday, okay? We can look forward to that. And then for you personally to be so consistent. You know, when you start something, you like, people follow people for consistency, because if they like you, they're like, oh, we know she's gonna drop that Friday nugget. And you on the back end, you gotta be disciplined to drop that Friday nugget every Friday. Even when you don't feel like it. Even when you woke up in the Friday, ate the Friday you thought it would be. You still are dropping that for a sister that's waiting for that nugget. You know what I'm saying? And that is discipline within you. That is time management. You saying, I'm allotting a piece of my time to pour into someone that I don't even know. And so you're already practicing social and emotional learning with intention, but you don't even know that it's the skills that you're practicing. And these right here are ways that it makes us better every day, but also self-management skills are really like the biggest skill that makes you successful. I always say, when you see somebody has mastered or is successful, they have mastered self-management. They've mastered the time management. They've mastered the self-discipline. They've mastered the self-motivation, right? So it's so good to see that, because I want to acknowledge you and praise you for that, because a lot of times we don't acknowledge those things that may seem like we just got to do it. You know, you don't got to do that. You don't got to do them Friday nuggets. Nobody is holding a gun in your head telling you to give you a Friday nugget.
You know what? And I always say, nothing can conquer a person that won't quit. You know?
That's good.
It is the consistency.
It's the consistency.
It is the consistency that causes you to be able to crush your goals, to conquer your goals, for you to even believe in yourself, right? Because we lose trust with ourselves when we start, stop. But it's in the consistency and you doing the thing that you say that you're going to do. It's in that consistency that we build trust within ourselves, and that we build confidence, and that confidence helps us to trust ourselves. I mean, just like anybody, right? Like, you build trust in relationships when people do what they say they're going to do.
And we talked about this on our earlier episode about, because a lot of people don't realize, and I believe in social and emotional character development, which is SECD. You can't do social emotional learning without a character. What is your character? What are your core values? And so a lot of times when we ask people what our core values, they be like, dang, I don't know. I never thought about that, right? And when I go speak, I say, what's your core value? Write 3 down. And then I ask them, I say, if you ask your best friend right now, what was my core values? Would it match with what you said? And so it's so important that you say what you do and you do what you say, because that's how that trust is built, and that's how those real relationships are formed. I first started developing my curriculum in 2016. I brought it into an alternative school in Washington, D.C. And I had kids that were shot 5 times at the age of 14, kids that were addicted to K2, which is a synthetic weed drug. I had kids that were dropping their babies off that were 13. So they were dropping their babies off before my class because they had a daycare. they had a daycare in my school, like the school, and I was teaching a curriculum, a social emotional curriculum. At the time, it wasn't as popular, right? But I was innovative and I was a visionary, and I said, I believe this is going to work. And I anointed my curriculum. I ain't going to anointed before you, because I knew that there was so much trauma in these little kids. But the one thing that I was doing, and I didn't even know, somebody came up to me and said, "Oh my God, Kristen, this is cognitive behavior therapy."
Yes, CBT.
But it was just in a very innovative way. So kids were making rap songs about their brokenness. They was getting up and doing skits about fear. And I just developed a curriculum that I wanted for myself growing up. So I created a safe space for these Black kids to be able to come and share their emotions, identify their emotions, and see that we all have common emotions, that we all go through these struggles, right? So how do you keep yourself sane? Because, you know, as a therapist and as someone that's in the field, what are your daily practices?
Oh, wow. There's power in my routine in the morning. Like a lot of people say, putting yourself first is selfish. But no, I put myself first. That is my practice every morning when I wake up. I put myself first. I am the most important person to myself. Because I give my babies and I give my husbands, I said, man, ooh, Lord, I only got one.
He may do double things. He may do all the things.
But I give my husband and I give my babies some good love, right? But the only reason and the only way I'm able to do that is because I pour into myself first. So essentially, I'm more important. I'm the most important person to myself. I'm even more important to myself than my children. Because if I pour into me, I'm going to be able to take care of them.
It's going to overflow.
But if I neglect myself and I pour into them, and I pour into my husband, and I constantly neglecting myself, I'm not going to be any good for myself. And eventually, what I'm pouring into them will stop.
Ooh, yes.
Right? So I have a routine in the morning where I pray, I do affirmations, I speak into myself, and I get up and I get ready. Because when you look good, you feel good. You know, after you done prayed, you done poured into yourself, affirm yourself, you need to take care of this temple and dress it up and look in a way that that serves you.
The Black Panther Party, though, right, had a 10-point program. And the very first thing that they listed was, we want freedom. We want the power, right? We want the power to determine the destiny of our Black community. Liberation, right? And these demands, right, this 10-point program is fed by, you know, the work that the NAACP was doing and other Black Power organizations were doing before Black Power was known as Black Power. You know, you can go as far back as 1901, the Niagara movement that was founded by W.E.B. Du Bois, right? But what I found very interesting was that the Black Panther Party, they quoted at the end of their 10-point program, they quoted the Declaration of Independence, right? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, liberation, right? That the securities rights governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, right? That wherever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem more likely to affect their safety and happiness, right? And it goes on to say, you know, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security, right? And this framing, right, that was written by these white men in 1776, right, was used by so many other Black folks that were organizing for liberation since their enslavement, since they were brought over enslaved by Europeans during the transatlantic slave trade. In fact, Dr. King was working off of this precipice towards the end of his life, right? This kind of contradiction. And so, you know, thinking about the historical kind of framework, right? Like the pursuit of liberation as it pertains to BLM doesn't just exist to or relate to BLM. There's a long thread of people who have been contributing to that container, and then also a long thread and history of counter organizing against it. Right, 1967, COINTELPRO was started by the FBI. That was designed to monitor Black resistance in the pursuit of liberation. Right, there were world social forums that were designed by organizers to kind of create and think about what a different world could look like. Right, what a just world could look like. And out of the world forum, the World Social Forum, the U.S. Social Forum was started. There was one in 2010 with 20,000 people that showed up to Detroit, right? And actually, Durham, North Carolina, where I'm at now, hosted the Southeast Social Forum in 2006, right? And that 2010 was the same year as the Arab Uprising, and other historical moments that have happened where people are fighting for liberation or fighting for the material conditions to create the transformation to lead us toward liberation that have been happening. Right, in 2013, North Carolina became the first state in the United States to pay reparations to the victims of involuntary sterilization, which was passed in 1937 or so. And that was the same year that George Zimmerman was acquitted of the brutal murder of Trayvon Martin. Right. And so I'm saying all that to say that in reality, like BLM is not activated out of a vacuum. In fact, it's connected to a larger stream that contributes to the momentum that they have or had. You know what I mean? And the last U.S. Social Forum was in 2015, right, which was the same year as one of the most volatile election cycles in the U.S. history with the election of Donald Trump. Right. And now we're seeing all of this kind of play out right in front of us right here on the news. If you're on Twitter or you're looking at CNN or just texting anything, you're seeing like the kind of manifestation of all this stuff right here in front of you.
So I don't know who else feels like they are in a college classroom right now, but I feel like I just got a free course in African American studies and I am here for it. But how can SEL skills benefit the individuals who feel that they are victims of social discrimination?
I think that, we have an opportunity to kind of claim our realities, right? To redesign the world that we want to see. And there was an article I read about 10 years ago after Trayvon Martin was murdered that was done by a gentleman, a Black man who was responsible for setting the marketing trends for McDonald's and a few other organizations. This is how you saw kind of McDonald's become this staple in Black communities. They started to show Black people in space using hip hop to market to Black people. But in his response to Trayvon Martin's murder, he wrote about how there was to come a moment where Black America checks out or leaves the United States, right? And not a physical leave, right? But effectively like a social checkout. That we've asked enough times for a social contract that could not be fulfilled. And that Black people would become, and brown people and affected people would be tired of trying to negotiate, right? With a place that didn't want to see us be full and be human.
Right.
And I think that over the last 10 years or so, we've seen a lot of our movements move towards a kind of a self appreciation, right? You've seen Black Girl Magic, Black Boy Joy, a celebration of Blackness pop up in a lot of these spaces. And with that, we've seen lots of other kind of ways toward people turning towards emotional well-being, finding space to kind of be well, right? And I think that's one of the critical pieces to the question you're asking. It's that while things are going to be happening around us, what SEL provides us with social emotional awareness provides us with is an opportunity to, in the midst of it all, still find joy and happiness and fulfillment in our own individual selves that allow it to permeate around our community and create space for us to be well, regardless of what the institutions and systems kind of try to do to us.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that we also celebrate those small wins, like seeing all of that media coverage and content put out there that promotes Black people in a positive light, and seeing how people are, taking up their savings and making a trip to West Africa or going back to, different parts of the African continent just to be able to experience what that feels like, and then really coming back and celebrating it. And I think it's, a lot of it happened during the height of COVID while everyone's home and everyone's on their computer screens and got their phones in their hands. And so I think it really was able to infuse into, our public at the right time.
Welcome to Black SEL.
Blackity black, blackity black.
Come on. I think that might be the best rendition yet. Okay. So before we start, I just gotta, everybody knows I am a singer at heart. Okay. Might not be able to sing, but my worship, is my worship, and I worship for real. So I want to just start by going into, a favorite song I had growing up. One of my songs was He's an On Time God.
Uh-huh.
Yes, he is. Oh, he's an on time God.
Oh, yeah.
Is. And he may not come when you want him, but he's always on time. Do you have a song that just always resonated with you growing up that you just loved?
Wow. For me, one of them was I will trust
Come on.
in the Lord. I will trust in the Lord. I will trust in the Lord till I die. Till I die, I will trust. Yeah, that was one of mine. You know what I'm saying?
You make us want to trust singing like that.
But then they said this though. But then they said, I'm gonna stay on the battlefield. Yeah, I mean,
and it was it was also so prophetic, because it was like they were speaking. Those songs are speaking over our life to trust in the midst of so much turmoil. To trust in the midst of just every aspect of our life. And then when they said, I'm gonna stay on the battlefield, the consistency in the fight.
Yep.
Even when you didn't know what was on the other side. Black SEL is so church, so the Black church is so aligned with the Black church.